Hey everybody, welcome to DBS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me as always is my brother Brendan, and together we make movies with DBS Films. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look back at 2022 for DBS Films, some of the milestones, breaking down basically each month, and also highlighting basically what worked, what we're changing up for 2023, and just to give you guys a good insight behind the journey. As always, be sure to take a look at us online at DBS Films on our Discord channel. That's the place to be, but you can also take a look at our website and a lot of other super cool things that we have there. So, we're going to have two parts on this. In the first part, we're going to go through the first half of the year, and then the second part, the second. But I feel like the first thing I really want to do is just kind of highlight how this was by far one of DBS's best years. I mean, I think we're improving, the process is going, but I really can't point back to another year. I mean, we had milestones of getting through and, making a movie and salvaging movies and things like that. But this was the first time it really felt like we built a solid base and we just have a much clearer picture of what we're doing. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I think so. I think we definitely have a much stronger vision. The course of the business is much more certain than it was at the beginning of the year, which are all, huge milestones. Back when we were doing, like, we've made more movies in other years, but those are more, shotgun approach. We're still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. We're both movies that we worked on this year. We understood we want to go with those movies, and we, accomplished our goals. So I definitely think everything's a little bit more controlled. We were trying for higher quality products. But I mean, I think that it was probably the best year for the DBS Films branch since inception.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think we made a lot of progression, not only on the film side, but I think really the major difference here has been finding our audience, finding our community, the rapid growth that we've had on social media channels, and more importantly, I'm probably going to talk about it the entire time these next two episodes, but I mean the community, the super fans, those things. Like if you had asked me, hey, are you going to make 2 movies this year, 3 movies this year, what we're looking at, I would have said, yeah, that's definitely something because we've done it before. It's there. If you told me we'd be approaching 12,000 people that we would actually end up casting in our movies, people who are all about DBS, more importantly, just what the community is involved into, where it's just so much more than the movies as well there, that was something I couldn't even begin to comprehend. And I think that's where we're really seeing that exponential growth. And, really, we mentioned it in why you need to build a brand, but I feel like we really stumbled upon just the most amazing community and something we're going to continue to do as we continue to make movies.
Yeah, and I think it was, the combination of having the COVID years off and understanding where we wanted to go with the company, and that, in order to survive, we needed to have better quality products. And I think we could have marketed the first date. I think we could have had a TikTok following. I think we could have had social media presence, but I don't think we would have had the same success. It was until we finally got a quality product. I say quality on an indie level. I don't think Girl in Cabin 13 is going to win any Oscars this year, but it was enough where there wasn't technical issues, and that's people who are interested in those kind of movies would enjoy that kind of movie. And then at least the people who aren't into that kind of movie would watch it still, give us a negative review, but hey, they still watched it. So we could take that feedback and get better. So I think it was, a combination of both having a quality product, or at least a minimal viable product for the first time, and that kind of sparked the TikTok revolution. And it's just been great. We literally, I don't know when we started the TikTok, but I don't think it's even been a year yet. And I think that growth is there. And I think they're now, the community and the production side of things are going to kind of move in unison, because I think that as the movies get better, we'll find more fans, we'll find new fans, and we'll be able to add them to the Discord and all the other cool stuff that we're doing. And that's when I think you're really going to start to see the flywheel effect, when both arms, the marketing and the production side and the Discord and the community side, all that stuff kind of works together. I think we're going to grow very, very quickly, and it's going to allow us to do a lot more cool stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, I really think that now you're getting just a synchronized push from both sides that we have a unique approach to. One, I don't really know other filmmakers who are able to create as many features as efficiently as we're doing, because we're always scouring and keeping an eye out there. So we have the ability to create quality products, and then as you mentioned, now we have the support from it, and the support's building each time. So we're going to go ahead, hop into January, the start of the year. And what I have down for January is it's the launch of Girl in Cabin 13. I mean, technically it was December 12th or 13th, but we were kind of pushing off of that. And as you mentioned with TikTok, I actually started it on the 26th. So it was the day after Christmas. I started it and I was posting a few things and nothing too much. But what ended up happening on January 1st, and Chloe, absolutely amazing in Girl in Cabin 13. But the one behind the scene of you running into the glass door that, as you mentioned, will forever haunt you, that was when it exploded for the first time. And I mean, we've done social media, and I'm the first person to basically give a ton of props to any Instagram, any YouTuber, anything like that, because it really is a struggle to get it going. I mean, we were posting all the time on Instagram. We gotten up to 27,000 followers, but that was like 4 years of like posting and just getting likes and a few comments. Well, we posted this on TikTok, and within the first day it hit 1 million. And I just remember seeing that, and we gained like 8,000 followers or something like that in that day. And that was something where I was like, wow, this is totally unique and different. And again, the thing with TikTok, you'll get a lot of views. You don't quite know, what the conversions are to later. So to your point, I think because the Girl in Cabin 13 was enough of a product that I ended up started going live in those TikToks, and people were mentioning, hey, I've seen this movie. You guys made this movie. And that's really when it came together. So, we were coming off Girl in Cabin 13. We had some success with TikTok, but again, even at this phase, I wouldn't even begin to say that we had a plan together, or Discord wasn't even a thought. I never even thought anyone would contact us, but that progressed a little bit. But let's talk about the beginning of January and coming into it. You just launched Girl in Cabin 13. Again, that was our first one with distribution. That was our first one kind of getting going there. So I think my personal feelings with it is, we filmed one in May. We filmed one in October or November for 2021. And you had finally gotten the May one completed. Again, we know post-production is really tough and whatnot, but this was the first one we got distribution. So what was kind of your thoughts going into, the start of 2022?
Well, we wanted to hit the ground running. The goal for this year was to shoot 3 movies. And I think we would have shot 3 movies. Dylan had jury duty, so we couldn't. We were one man down. So the reason we don't have another movie out is purely on Dylan, so you guys can let him know. But I think it was, the goal is to do 3. What happened is we should have shot a movie in January. But here's the whole thing with post. In my mind, I was like, I can't really shoot anything. I don't want to create something new because I have a movie that I need to market, which is Girl in Cabin 13. And I had a movie that needed some aggressive pickup shots, which is Murder House. I think at this point we were done with the Murder House edit as far as we possibly can go without getting the van pickups. So you had 2 things done, and like I was writing the Shapeshifter at this time, but it's like until you start to have these hard deadlines, writing can just go on forever. You don't really need to have a time to stop. So, I was in heavy marketing with Girl in Cabin 13. We were in heavy post-production with Murder House, and I was in light pre-production for the Shapeshifter. If we wanted to do 3 or 4 movies in a year, if you're trying to stack these things, try and start right off the bat in January. I think that's what we're going to do next year, and that saves you 3 months. And that's just how you have to do. You got to hit the ground running if you're going to try and make 2 to 3 movies in 1 year.
Yeah, and so coming in, I mean, January, now that I think about it, was actually a really big month when it comes to, as you were mentioning, we're basically doing 3 things at once. Girl in Cabin 13 was out, first time with a distributor, first time on things like Tubi, first time. So like, I mean, we were really kind of pushing those things, but I think Tubi came like around March or something like that. But you're pushing that movie, and this again just shows you as a filmmaker, you have to keep on going, because we filmed that movie in May. So as you mentioned, in January, we were also doing the pickup shots for the van. So we were doing the pickup shots for the van, which we had multiple incidents, kind of occur with just the weather and whatnot. And I think the biggest thing in post, in my opinion, is if you have multiple pickups, you can never really kind of start getting those final details in. So it's always something weighing on you. Um, but that just shows all of the different directions going. I think we were pretty close to finalizing Shapeshifter in January. I mean, I think we did finalize Shapeshifter in January because I remember we were doing the casting calls at the end of January, but we do tweak up the script a little bit. But that was kind of the first time we put the shape shifting or the script online. We did it through TikTok, so that was chaos with like a Google sheet. Like I'll never forget kind of pushing through that. But that was at like the end of January. And then another huge milestone, that was when we had the first few people. I ended up going live. They were basically like, hey, like we really like you, want to support. I go live at a consistent time. And I always say that January crew is kind of that January, February group is kind of what evolved into the Discord. And I'm going to give a shout out to Howard again in Aries, as we always do, because he definitely deserves it. He was one of the first people to message me. And he's like, I just want to support you guys. Like, this is really cool what you're doing. Now, Aries was very lucky, destiny, coincidence, whatever you want to call it. He lives basically 25 minutes away from me. So in January was the first time that I signed a DVD of one of our movies. And I think this is what I point back to where, yeah, of course we're going to make more films. Yeah, of course we're going to get these things done. Would you have asked me if someone's going to find me online and ask to get a signature of our DVD? No way. And I think that, in my opinion, one of the big differences from this year versus last year is the motivation you get from knowing that there's like fans and people out there. I mean, like we're going to continue to power through, but I think that was also really cool. And I think that's what, propelled us through those first months of like, okay, we got the movie up, we're doing this, but we did pick, like, I mean, just getting the pickup shots from Murder House. And, I think one of the bigger ones is we knew Shapeshifter was going to be a bit of a challenging one, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. How would you say, just like example, Aries, the benefit that he's provided and the benefit that we're starting to see even as early as January?
Yeah, I mean, he came on and, it reassured my faith that we can use the Discord to cast people. He was extremely helpful. He came in, he knew his part. He did a lot of pre-production work. And he brought unique characteristics to his character, which is what you want from an actor. So he hit, all those aspects. And, he had a limited amount of acting experience, but it doesn't matter. We have limited amount of producing and making movie experience. So we can all work and get better together. But the fact that he came out there, gave it his all, he was helping me hold lights. He could have went home and he stayed. Just shows the power of the community. And it's just the beginning of, what we can accomplish. We just have to, once again, continue to hit our metrics and continue to get these movies out there. But you can start to see the flywheel start turning.
All right. So to pick up where we're at, we got the Girl in Cabin 13. We have pre-production of Shapeshifter, which is now Forest of Death, coming to all major platforms in January. And then we have Murder House, which needs a few pickups. Let's talk a little bit more about Girl in Cabin 13, because it was the first movie that we did since after COVID. I always point to the one that this was our little timid one. We restructured a lot of things, but we knew we wanted to have something simple, straightforward. But I think like Gone was a milestone, obvious reasons. I think Girl in Cabin 13 was a milestone. And, from everything we saw, it had a very successful launch.
Yeah, I mean, Girl in Cabin 13, it really wasn't until March when it really exploded. It had a very strong TVOD release, but IMDb was causing issues, and we actually have 2 listings of Girl in Cabin 13 on Amazon due to an issue. So there were some things that were slowing that launch down. But I'll tell you what, that was the first time we were on any platforms outside of Amazon. And just seeing your stuff on like DirecTV, seeing your stuff on all these platforms, Fandango, I think we were like Redbox Online, like all these different platforms is really, really cool. But it wasn't until we hit Tubi in March where it was just, hey, this movie's free, that we were able to just hit a whole nother level of demographics. And I think that that's the one that really, shot us up because we were number one on all of Tubi. And the amount of hours watched on that movie is probably in the millions, because that's a huge, huge platform. And, it was cranking. And then that's when we started to get a lot of feedback of, hey, I've seen your movie. Can we be a part of this?
Oh yeah. Again, really significant. And this is the hard part. It wasn't until March, like you said, that's 9 months from when we ended up filming it. So Girl in Cabin 13 is doing work on TVOD right now. The Shapeshifter, I wanted to talk about this one because I feel like since Girl in Cabin 13 was a pretty easy one, we were very confident with Murder House. And you kind of mentioned before, like do a few safe ones and then do like a more interesting one, but we always knew the concept with Shapeshifter just because the nature of the plot and everything was going to be a lot. So we're basically juggling all of these things and looking at one of the more complicated scripts just that, we were filming compared to Murder House, compared to Girl in Cabin 13.
Yeah, the way we operate is we take one risk and then we do something safe, and we take one risk and we do something safe. Because if we were to miss on two movies, it wouldn't be good for us. And when I say safe, it's either a movie that we've done before or a minimalistic budget one, a very easy shoot. So for like the last one, Girl in Cabin 13 was just kind of a Kickstarter to get back, very easy. Murder House was easy as in we've done it before. The actual shoot is very, very complicated. Shapeshifter was one where the idea is very complicated. We had never done it before, and it's just like the script, and to tell that movie like I wanted to do, which is a homage to the 80s style, like movies like The Thing and other just cool 80s fun kind of horror movies, to do that is just very, very difficult. So if I was a producer and my director self said, hey, Brendan, I'm trying to make this crazy movie that I've never done before, and we don't know if it's going to work or sell, that's 3 red flags. So going into it, I wanted to get Shapeshifter out of my system because I really wanted to make a movie like this. I wanted to see if I could enjoy this movie. I wanted to see if other people like that kind of upbeat horror stuff instead of like the elevated horror, which is super popular today. So I think you just got to kind of figure out what you want to do. And then you just got to get it done.
Yeah. It was certainly one that it took us a little bit more, I would say, of work when it comes to the script, especially compared to Murder House and the Girl in Cabin 13. But it's one I really like, and I think we did a really, really good job of it. So we're going into February now. We're getting the casting done for Shapeshifter. I think the one way that we got kind of around the casting a little bit to make it a lot easier with the production itself. Chloe, she'd been on with us with Girl in Cabin 13. Tyler had just filmed Murder House, and Dylan had filmed Girl in Cabin 13 and Murder House. We also had Reggie coming back. So we had a lot of people, and Aries again stepping up. So I think one of the reasons why we were able to get pre-production just a little bit more confident than typical was we were reusing a lot of the teams that we had before. And just want to talk about real quick as a filmmaker, being able to talk that specific language and understand what a DBS shoot is like is a really big benefit when it comes to especially a project as big as Shapeshifter.
Yeah, I knew that if I was going to shoot Shapeshifter, and it was a movie that I had in my head, it was going to be very difficult. There's a lot of crew, there's a lot of people on there. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to take a shot at an ambitious idea, let's try and make sure that we're using people that understand what a DBS shoot is, are willing to work on a DBS shoot again, and that I can communicate with them, because we don't have a lot of time to shoot this crazy ambitious project. So I think that was like kind of my rationale. I was like, well, I could go big with story, but come back to people that I'm confident with. I think Stephanie was the only one that was really new. Roger was new, but I had no worries with Roger. He did an absolute phenomenal job in pre-production. So we just kind of, peppered on. We casted Aries from the Discord, but for the most part, that core group of Dylan, Chloe, Tom, really understood what I was trying to do. I didn't have to worry about them, so I could work with Stephanie because that was her first time, and we could just focus on trying to tackle this, pretty ambitious project.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was really just ramping up there. And at this time, the TikToks are growing. We're starting to find a lot more people getting them. I'm doing basically lives every single day. That was back, I think, when Batman was coming out. So everyone was calling me Paul Dano. So that was definitely like an era that'll stay there. But we're having all of these things moving. I think the other one is just finishing Murder House was always like, oof. I mean, we even did some more pickups. I think it was like I want to say like May or something, like when we did the drink one. So we're putting the movie together, but I will say, for Murder House, this was one where like right from the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is a lot better than Girl in Cabin 13. And I say the same thing about Death or Forest of Death too. Like me personally, I think it's just working through them, editing through them, you just see. And you might like one story better or whatnot, but I think Murder House, as we mentioned, just it really we see the pacing improve just a ton from Girl in Cabin 13 to Murder House. We see it improve in Force of Death. And now guess what? We're editing into the Force 2, and it is just so much better pacing than all of those movies. So you want to talk about your feelings of Murder House as we're at this point in time?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be good because we did it before. The footage that we have is really good, and we had the ability to manipulate the plot, or at least the pacing, because we had Kel in a van that was outside of the actual residence. So we had the ability to really edit this thing comfortably. Um, and I thought it was by far our best paced movie. I think Girl in Cabin 13 has some slowdowns here and there. I think the Girl in Cabin 13 climax is actually really, really good. And I think Murder House has a lot of its issues as well. We were looking at the YouTube analytics the other day. It shows us where like what pop scares people like to watch again. Um, and I think it just comes back to, what we talk about all the time. You can never go too slow. Like even the fastest movie, and if you think you're moving too fast, you're probably not moving fast enough, because Shapeshifter, I think, is even better paced than Murder House, and Into the Forest is much better paced than Shapeshifter. So we're getting there, but I still think we're a little bit far away from where we need to go. But, as far as Murder House goes, I knew we had something good. I was willing to spend a little bit more time on the pickups because of how well Girl in Cabin 13 did. I knew we had a real winner with Murder House.
Yeah. So this is going to basically bring us to the end of February now. And I think the significant point, February 27th, to be specific, is when we actually started the Discord. So DBS Films Discord. Its birthday is February 27th. Congratulations to everyone who joined us on the 27th. That's quite the milestone. Because basically what had happened is I was doing lives consistently. People were being like, oh, are you going to get on live? We're going to do messages. And it's funny because I did mention it when we were filming Murder House when I was talking with Dylan about it. And I was like, yeah, I could see Discord being good. But again, we just, it'd be me and like maybe 15 other people or whatnot. So we finally got to the point where we were getting people who were doing the lives. TikTok, as always, is just all over the place. So like sometimes I do lives. I had like 1,500 people there in February at one point in time, but then you might get a little bit. So it's like, all right, we need to find a way that we can actually cultivate this group and have like a normal conversation that's not just like TikTok messages and things. So 27th, we started it. And man, just building something like this, seeing this community. We're now, as I mentioned, closing in on 12K when it comes to the number of people here. But it's just allowed us to just solidify the community so much. And like, to me, again, the biggest thing of this year, I knew we were going to make movies. I knew we were going to get bigger. But if you told me we'd have a group where we're doing karaoke night, we have basically a holiday Christmas sweater party tonight, we're doing trivia, movie Mondays, all of these things, and we'd meet up, met in person, all this stuff, amazing merch, thanks to a successful Kickstarter. Like this is the whole undiscovered element of the year to me. Going into 2023, it's much easier to plan for what the Discord's going to evolve into than just the idea that we're going to have a community plugged in 24/7. So, one of the goals that I had was I wanted someone to be interacting with DBS 24/7 in some way, whether it's watching the movies or just taking a look at the things. And this area, like once the Discord started, because that's also when we started the podcast, we really just tried to fan out with the different channels we have. And, as we mentioned, building a brand can be one of the most powerful things. We were just talking, this launch of Forest of Death is going to be the strongest one that we have because of the community. So just want to talk about how the community itself has just opened up so many opportunities for us, especially as you mentioned, we scale and get better with the movies, the community scaling as well. It's just going to put us into hyper growth.
Yeah, I definitely think if you were to ask me what the most important growth metric of this year, it's definitely the Discord and the community that we have built. I think that yes, we've written a lot of scripts. Have we gotten much better at making movies, editing movies, working with actors, writing, all the stuff that comes into, having a successful film company? But I wouldn't trade that for the growth of the Discord. I think that was our most important play. It was the one thing that we're really missing was, having a community, being able to launch this stuff out and send it out to fans and understanding who our fans were. With our first 8 movies, we had people that watched our stuff. A lot of our movies got watched a ton, but we never had a community behind them. So it is like, all right, if this comes across my screen on, Amazon or a Tubi or wherever all the platforms we were on before, if it comes on there, I'll click it, but I'm not going out of my way to interact or search these guys. And now we have people who are excited for our releases that aren't even out yet. And I think that's the first step of, getting that audience behind you. And, it motivates my ass. We get better and we try and make more movies because I want to get more Discord members in the movies. And obviously I want to reward you guys with the actual stuff, that we produce. So I think it is sort of like a flywheel where, everything's growing at once. And maybe, our biggest, foundation has been the Discord. And you may not be able to see that, because you look at the IMDb and you see all the movies. But that, in my opinion, is the most valuable piece of growth that we've had this year.
I mean, I completely agree. Again, it stuns me. And this is a huge shout out to all of the mods, all of the members, all of the super fans, especially Carl's Club. Like these past year, everyone that's been part of this Discord for this past year, you guys are going to get rewarded so much as we continue to scale and grow, just in the sense that this really has solidified it for us. And I thank you so much for all the different things that you've been doing for us, all the things you're going to continue to do. Like you said, it motivates us. I am hungry to make this succeed beyond anything we can fathom, because we're going to bring everyone together with it, in the sense of we're going to continue to do more things. I can't wait for more super fan events. I can't wait to, every year have an event in Vegas and go all over the place, go on tours and make DBS what it should be. Just this amazing creative community. And nothing makes me happier than seeing the way that it's scaled there. So that's my little shout out to it. I'm incredibly thankful to everyone there. I'm going to continue to shout it out when I say little shout out, but wow, guys, like I could not expect everything that came about from this. So we have the Discord. It's popping. I'm learning out what to do. I'm like creating channels. I'd never used Discord before. Pretty much no one's used Discord before that. So that was kind of the building up for me, or March, I'd say the big one. Going into April, all right, it's pre-production. It's Shapeshifter. I mean, I remember this was one where I talked to you about it after going through Murder House, because I was like, I don't know how we really film all of this. I mean, I know we had, I believe, an extra, was it 1 day or 2 days? I'm not quite sure how many extra days we had for Murder House, but Murder House, like 25% of the movie takes place in a van that we had to do later on. Like there was just a lot of stuff we had to do. So I remember just kind of being like, all right, like here it comes. So how are you kind of feeling in that April leading up to it? Because again, we have Murder House. Girl in Cabin 13 is now on Tubi. So when Tubi comes out, guess what? That's a whole nother marketing push, guys. So you're doing all these things. We're in this place. Where's your mind at going into Shapeshifter, which we know is going to be our toughest one yet?
Well, I don't think I ever felt comfortable with Shapeshifter. In pre-production, I just knew this thing was going to be an absolute like nightmare. I was never happy with the script, but instead of sitting here and trying to fix it, I was like, let's shoot it. And at least we could figure out, number one, if people like this kind of concept, and number two, what we did right and what we didn't do right. And if people like it, we could reshoot it as a 2.0 version next year. So I was just like, listen, the script has its flaws. I'm not comfortable with a lot of this, but it's to the point where I'm comfortable with like 80% of it. So let's push it forward. While shooting it, I was never comfortable. That movie was absolute aggressive. And with Murder House, I had a lot of coverage. With this one, I had a little bit of coverage, but there's just maybe twice as many shots. It was inside, it was outside. We were moving around. We had to shoot only at night. It was not easy, and obviously the post production process to edit all that footage was also a nightmare. So that was my thought process of Shapeshifter. Was I probably only felt comfortable with the Shapeshifter movie the other day when it was completely finalized and it's ready to get uploaded. I'm finally like, all right, like this is a good product. We did a good job here. It's probably better than I expected by far. And I think that was like a milestone, because it's like whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And that movie tried to kill me multiple times.
That movie was very aggressive. I remember just the whole time. And it was also one where like I love that story. Such a good story. There's so much you could do. But after The Devil in the Room, I've always been hesitant of doing these good stories because my biggest pushback is like, I don't know about the budget on this one. But again, huge shout out to the amazing crew that we had. We were able to pull it off. We were able to get it together. I mean, that's a movie where like we could not afford to miss. And those are always the most stressful ones. Even with like our newer movies that we have now, like, I mean, we could, like, there's very few that could derail the production. Whereas it was almost like as Shapeshifter was moving, the railroad behind it was crumbling, everything was on fire. And we just knew, like, is it going to get there? That being said, I do have the benefit of the first look with the rough edit, and I will go back to the very first day that we got it. And I said very clearly, this movie is going to be our best one. It's better than Murder House. He's getting there now. You give it a few, it releases, then you watch it. You got to watch Murder House again. But basically, I knew we had something good there. I mean, I think it was a big step up for you specifically with cinematography. Because, I mean, again, you have two features now. I think you kind of got a good lay of the land. You weren't captain coverage, which was just brutal for the Murder House, but it was a huge step up. And we want to hear more about the Forest of Death. We're going to have a lot of stuff for it. It's Shapeshifter for the first earlier videos, but we do have a day-by-day breakdown as well, too, for that. So we finished that wrap, and I think that one was probably one other thing I want to talk about is that was the first set that was really different in the sense of we have the support. We had people interested in the pre-production or the actual production. Like we had the Discord, we were posting things. And I just remember thinking, oh, shoot, we got to finish this thing because I think we have a platform for it. So you want to talk about your feelings in the sense that we have Girl in Cabin 13. We have Murder House. We're filming our most aggressive one. There is a very good feeling as a production company when it's like, dang, we're actually pulling it off.
Yeah, and I mean, this was the first time when I talk about so much about cultivating fans. When we would release the poster art in the trailers for Murder House, people would be like, oh, you guys did Cabin 13. I want to check this out. And that's like practicing what we preach over here. So, we felt really good. I had, after we wrap, and every time you wrap anything and you make it through the first like cut of it, which is like my cut, to make sure that like at the worst case scenario, we have a movie that we can get through. Like there's no absolute pitfalls. All the audio is there, all the videos there. We didn't miss any scenes. Once you get past that first timeline, it's rough, but in the worst case, you have a movie. And that's when that is your original marble stone that you're going to spend the next 3 to 4 months chiseling down. But I felt really good. I mean, to be able to shoot that, I knew I was not going to shoot anything as crazy as Shapeshifter for the next 3 or 4 movies. So I was like, all right, that was the hardest one. We got that one out. I thought we did make a lot of progress from, just looking at the footage from Murder House. I thought the cinematography was much better. The actors did a really, really good job on this one. And I think, the thing I always look at is like, all right, how close to the vision that I had in my head goes into this movie? And I think that one was probably the closest I've come to replicating what's in my head. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. It's up to you to decide. But that, whatever you're watching when you watch that movie, is exactly what I had in my head. And I think that is a very difficult skill for any filmmaker to do, is to take what you have in your head and get it out there, get it on paper, get it on film, get it uploaded.
Oh yeah, 100%. So we're cruising through this. We're gonna basically end up in July now, and this is when we're gonna kind of end the first half of this episode. But July was actually a huge month when I look at it. So um, right now, guys, we started in March the Discord, and I need to take a look. Oh, I have it. Where was it? It's in May. It was May. Oh man, oh wow, it took us a while. So May 26th was when we crossed 1,000. And there's gonna be a shout out, Anelia, if you're listening to this. I remember when we crossed 500, we are doing like a live stream, and I think that took us like 2 months. So it took us like 2 months to get to basically 500 people in the Discord. And again, we're trying to figure it out. We're doing a few things here and there. We finally crossed 1,000 people at May 26th. We go through June, and I think, let me see. So we get to the end of June, and we're at like 1,600. So as you can see, we're picking up the pace there. July 1st to the July 4th, we added 4,000 members to the Discord. TikTok was rewarding the lives. They were coming in, they were pouring in like crazy. But this is something, you're listening at this, there's a very good odd that you are typically an older member of DBS Discord, in the sense of like being there like February through that time frame. But then there is the July rush, the July babies, as they like to call themselves. But we had a ton of people join us in that first time. Looking at a lot of the mod team came in with July, a lot of that. And that was almost to me like a level up. We went from, spending 3 months to getting 1,000 people to now we got 4,000 people all within like 3 days. So I think what was apparent to me is the message that we have. And again, we created a website, we did all of these things, we were posting on these channels, but just the idea of just an open community focused studio to me really solidified. And this was the first inkling to me of people are really going to love this idea, the idea that the more movies we make, the more you guys support us, the more we can make movies, the more we're going to cast from you. And I think that is a very powerful concept and idea. And again, as you mentioned, this is something where you're thinking of the strongest asset we have. I think seeing that rapid growth completely solidified it to me, because again, we're closing in on 12K, we're closing in on 300K. Who knows what next year's metrics are going to look like?
Yep. I mean, it's just exponential growth. And I think that, we started out ahead of the community as far as a production company. We had more movies out, we had products and everything. And, once we hit, that August mark, I think the community started to outgrow us. So it's definitely something that I look forward to catching up. And I think we have a very good plan of next year of how we're going to catch up and how we're going to get more Discord members into these movies, how our movies are going to get better. And I think if you just do that, if we make enough movies and consistently make the movies, I think with each release, it'll be better. We'll start to get newer platforms. And I think at that point, you can start to see, the growth in every single movie. And as we grow, we're going to need more roles. We're going to need to cast more people. So obviously we grow with the Discord as well. And I think that if we do that enough times, you kind of hit the lucky breaks, like when we hit Tubi, when we found TikTok. Like, you can never predict them, but if you keep doing the right things day in and day out, your luck will be on your side.
Oh yeah. And again, that's the great one to describe for TikTok, because literally I was doing the same stuff for 6 months or 7 months really to get to, kind of the July area. But it wasn't until then when things really, picked up, and you never know when it is going to hit, but when it does, it really kind of makes like, a massive difference for it. So I think the big one at this point too is, we're gearing up for the launch of our Kickstarter, and then also the writing Into the Forest. And just a little note for Into the Forest, this was one where with Shapeshifter, I want to say I knew, I think, did we even talk about really doing found footage before like Ashley and all of that stuff? I feel like I really feel like it came about when we kind of start getting more feedback and seeing people really liked Into the Forest. We'd be like, hey, what's your favorite movie? And it was usually the newest one, or it's like Into the Forest. Like, I just remember the shifting there, because I was always against found footage.
Yeah, I think we're going to go back to found footage. Just especially after Shapeshifter, we wanted Into the Forest to be a safer movie. Um, and it turned out to also be very aggressive just because of how good the quality of script and the actors that we were able to get. But I knew we wanted to do found footage, but I was still on the mindset that distribution wouldn't take found footage, that found footage is very polarizing, and found footage does not have a wide appeal to a mass market. And those three things, kind of shied away. But I do remember shooting, found footage, and it's easier to shoot, it's easier to edit. But I don't think we're going like full on found footage like we are kind of now. Especially after, getting, I think Girl in Cabin 13 took 4 or 5 months to get done. Murder House took probably 6, 7 months with all the pickups. And then Shapeshifter took about the same amount of time. And that's a long time to be in post. And anytime you're in post, you're stuck, having that cloud hang over you. And when you start to, work on our cadence with how many movies we make, you kind of get stuck in post-production, pre-production, and shooting. And then you have all these things kind of, taking your attention away. So usually we're on a 4 to 6 month time frame to do post-production. And I'll just give you an example. The Forest, or not Forest, just Into the Forest 2.0. This is the first week that I've actually started to work on this thing. It is found footage. And within like 3 days, I'm already at like the 54-minute mark. And yes, it is a rough cut, but we're not going to be it's way not as rough as like anything else we get before. The movie's close, and that's 3 or 4 days. So you're condensing, which I think from start to finish, editing wise, I don't think it should take any longer than 30 days to edit a found footage movie compared to the 4 to 6 months with a cinematic movie. You kind of see why we're making this change to found footage.
Yeah, and my personal wager is that by the end of the year, so literally like a week from now, we'll have a witnessable rough, like that's really close, because there's not really much to do after that. I mean, it gives me a little bit of tweaking, but yeah, it's really, really nice. So, what I was kind of mentioning is I don't really recall when the shift was. Like you said, we kind of shied into it. But when we kind of were like, all right, we're doing found footage, we immediately were like Into the Forest. And I think this goes back to the model that we're trying to do and that we were already talking about, where like Girl in Cabin 13 can be a found footage type style. The Haunting of the Murder House can be a found footage type style. And again, it's just the core concepts. The core concepts are proven. It's, again, if you think like, oh, well, this is like, you're just redoing the same thing, go watch The Haunting of the Suicide House. Go watch The Haunting of the Murder House. There's no way the average person would know that's actually done with like the same people, in the sense of how different it can be. But I think this was the first time where, the benefit of already doing something. So I was like pre-production with Into the Forest 2.0. And as you mentioned, the script has never been better. We're very confident of what we need to do. I think our only inkling was like, is it going to be, how's found footage going to film or whatnot? But you want to just talk about revisiting the ideas, because we know what works, we know what doesn't work. And we always talk about this. When you finish something, that is when you can actually look back, do a post-mortem, see what was good, see what was bad. And then you get just such a leg up in developing the concept.
I mean, when you're putting together a production, there's a lot of things that you focus on, and you only have so much focus to go through an entire project, especially our level. In Hollywood, you will have, whole teams dedicated to a whole bunch of different tasks. So like going into it, Shapeshifter was a very ambitious script. So I took a cast that I knew I worked with before, that I was very comfortable with. And that was kind of like, I don't need to focus on them as much. I could focus on actually shooting and writing this movie. For, Into the Forest, I knew that we've done this one before, so I knew how to do it. The whole movie was much more simpler because it's found footage. So I was like, all right, I could take my focus and my attention and really focus on working with the actors. And I think you're going to see that in, the final product of Into the Forest. The acting is on a whole nother level. The story is on a whole nother level. And I'm really hoping that extra time that I devoted to in pre-production and in on set, because I knew how to shoot this and I knew how to make this movie because I've done it before, really shines through. And I think it's going to be a step up in the DBS, history of movies.
I mean, it really is. Like, this movie's super good. So I'm excited for it. That's going to go ahead and wrap up the first half of the year. And again, a milestone year for DBS. Super excited for next year. Huge props to everyone who's joining us on this journey, especially this Discord, especially the first ones. Because, I mean, man, we did it. Look how big we're already growing, and it's only the start. So we're going to go ahead. Be sure to join us online. DBS Films is the Discord channel you want to take a look at. We also have our website, podcast, blog, all those fun stuff. Just go ahead, take a look. But the Discord is a place to be because that is where you can get on set in our movies like we had for Into the Forest 2.0. But until then, have a good one.